I'm Mel Stewart, and this is a SwimSwam podcast. Joining us today for our CEO Swim series is a dear, dear friend, a man who is innovating in the sport of swimming, forcing us all to be data-driven. CEO, founder of Tritonwear, Tristan Tritonwear, or Tristan Lehari.
Same, but different.
I always assumed it was French, and I'm coming from North Carolina in the deep South. I figured I'd always get it wrong. Did I get it wrong?
Yeah, not French. No, a bit of an Estonian, German background, some English in there, some Welsh, some Canadian. Yeah, a little bit of everything.
Some Canadian. That's it's all good, but it's been an interesting time at it. But I've enjoyed building our relationship, and I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us because in swim. There has been a en masse rush into the sport in terms of integrating technology, and we have dealt with a lot of folks. And we should tell everybody out from the out at the outstart here that we are partners, and that frankly this space is so confusing that. Sometimes when people are great, they bubble to the top, and you trust them and you lean on them because my expert isn't there, and we've leaned on Tritonwear. And if you are unfamiliar or haven't made this connection, maybe you're one of those readers out there who, when a Tritonwear analysis doesn't come up fast enough, you call or text me and go, "Hey Mel, where's Tritonwear analysis?" This is the gentleman who is the man behind Tritonwear analysis. So let's get right into it. We're going to get into your business and explain exactly what it is and why everyone needs it. But tell us how does chlorine run in your veins?
Absolutely, it goes way back. Chlorine's kind of always been my cologne. So I guess I grew up club swimming. I then moved on and swam at the University of Waterloo up in Canada, where I'm from. While I was in mechatronics engineering there. So that's kind of really where I got to see things both from an athlete's perspective and from, I guess a technical perspective, which is, naturally where things started to kind of snowball with the concepts for Tritonwear, more coming from an athlete's angle at first, and then snowballing to, the kind of coach solutions we provide, and then even broader now to the even more, industry agnostic solutions that we're trying to look for longer term here. So, but yeah, lots of swimming in my veins. I'm a big swim nerd myself.
Let's address the elephant in the room. You've got the swim background, chlorine's in your veins. You are a young entrepreneur, and you've built out the best platform on earth in terms of how to integrate your swim teams using data-driven tech. But we live in a culture where a lot of coaches are old school, and they're slow to adopt. And I know you're aware of this coming in. If I'm a coach and I'm middle-aged or older, well, let's be honest. Where does that break down? I know you're aware of this. Like what coaches, what teams, who is interfacing with you faster?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think honestly, age is a piece of it, but I don't think it's really the main piece. We have some very senior coaches that totally buy into this concept, and they know this is the next step of the technology. I think the desire to adapt it within a program is more around the coach's willingness to change more than their age. Because I know young coaches that aren't willing to change what they do, but we have plenty of coaches that can barely turn a computer on that have said, "I love this. I want to do this." I've got assistant coaches that are going to help me implement this because I'm not the guy to do that, and they're going to be the next generation to take up the reins. So it's not necessarily an age thing. We have plenty of coaches again that use this from all ages. It's more about their desire to do something different and to believe in the fact that, the way we do things 20 years ago isn't necessarily the way that we should be doing things, now or 10 years from now or 20 years from now.
What's interesting is that, I got to know you because you're everywhere. You've got a lot of miles on your flight plans.
And, used to, not anymore.
not anymore. We'll get into that a little bit later. But it's you're in 60 countries. You have athletes from Olympic gold medalists all the way down to the grassroots, 30 plus national Olympic federations. Tritonwear is everywhere globally. You've done that, and you're a very approachable guy, and you're easy
Try.
to talk to. So it's if I'm a coach, or I am a swim parent, or I am somebody with a federation, and I walk up to you at an event, at a convention, and I say, "Hey, buddy, yeah, I'm curious. I want to stick my toe in the pool. What do you say to them? What's the elevator conversation?"
Sure. I mean, I guess fundamentally at Triton, where we're really trying to redefine athlete limits. We're trying to do this by starting with this foundation of automating data collection. Step one, to make better decisions as a coach or as an athlete, I need to know what's happening, and that's a huge challenge to begin with. But that being said, that's not the beginning for us. The big piece for us is then making sense of that data and actually guiding an athlete on that path to improvement. And we do this through a series of tools where we automatically analyze athletes' performance parameters, based on their own progressions, based on other athletes, their age or their speed, and so on, monitoring their training load to make sure that they stay in the safe zone, not overtraining or undertraining, et cetera. So it's all about optimizing, exactly how their training plan is executed, and then iterating on that training plan, not setting it in stone in September and hoping it works 8-9 months down the road. It's an iterative process, and trying to make sure that athletes, really get the most out of the limited time that they have in the pool, and throughout that whole season.
If you're not watching this podcast, you've downloaded it, you're listening to it. If you're at your desk, or you can pull your phone up, go to tritonwear.com, tritonwear.com. On the front page, you can scroll down, and it gives you 3 easy steps to get in. And it is 1, outfit your team; 2, track training; and 3, it is action on insights. And do you mind, just for our listeners out there, this audience on the podcast, it's not kids. It's we have some kids, but basically this is coaches, parents, a lot of swim leadership. So if I'm going to tritonwear.com and I scroll down and I go outfit the team, talk me through that. What is outfitting the team?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so our whole platform is based around an athlete membership structure. So effectively, it's an annual fee per athlete. Every athlete gets a free device with that membership. So effectively, every athlete gets their own Triton 2 unit for being on part of our platform, and that really just gives them everything that they need to track their data, to see the insights that we provide, and ultimately take their training to the next level and try to really, again, redefine their limits, to change their curve or their trajectory as an athlete, to get more out of maybe where they would have been going otherwise. So again, it's very simple. You can do this either as an individual athlete, or some of our biggest teams have hundreds of athletes on board. So all different scales, all different levels, starting from grassroots beginners up to Olympic gold medalists. We have solutions for every level.
And what I like about it is it's visualized training under outfit the team. To me, visualizing training, what is that? I like it, but what does it mean to you?
Sure. Yeah, sure. I mean, as I mentioned before, our first step is just automating that collection of data on deck. So, and the former way of training was maybe a few stopwatches around a coach's neck, maybe the athletes counted their strokes and all that. And maybe yelling it back at the coach. And what we're trying to do is just automate that process so that coaches just get the insight that they need. They just get the data that they need on deck. And they can spend their entire coaching practice focusing on stroke mechanics and giving feedback. We give them the data. We build out their workout for them. We classify exactly what they did. So, for example, if they swam 8/100s freestyle descending, we'll show that in the progression of 8/100s freestyle descending, just because we can see that motion and build it out for them. So again, visualizing what you did in the training session, and then visualizing what you did over the course of your season to help you change and iterate on your training plan.
I'm going to move on to point 2, but I just want to intersect this here. If you're with Swimming Canada, but there's a lot of great, which is a swimming powerhouse. When I was on the Olympic team and on the national team for Team USA, Canada was it was 25 million people at the time, but producing big stars. My roommate in college was Canadian. But not all swimming federations have what USA Swimming has, and we have our own person in-house. And they're using these types of metrics, and they have their own system, and they do it, and the national team leans on them. So elite swimmers are diving into this type of data, and they're doing it at training camps. They're doing it at elite meets. And what I thought was beautiful about Tritonwear was that you're taking all of that power, and you have it every single day.
Yeah,
every single day.
Yeah. And that's kind of what we see is it's great to be able to track that information in competition so that you can benchmark yourself and say, hey, this is what I need to do to execute. But at the end of the day, you're spending, dozens and dozens of hours in the pool for every, maybe 30 seconds you have in a competition. So, really, where is it going to make the most difference in terms of tracking data and making decisions on data? And for us, that's the training environment. Making changes in training environment is, what makes you better. The race is just the output of your training. So we're trying to make differences on the limited time you have in your training environment.
And if you're going to Tritonwear.com and you're checking this out, and you can, because you've downloaded this, that he's just covering that's number 2, tracking training. Measuring your performance. What I think is interesting is injury prevention. Mm-hmm. Where does injury prevention come into this?
Yeah, sure. So that's actually something that started with working with some of our federations, like Swimming Australia, the Australian Institute of Sport. A big focus for them and for many other federations is tracking training load for athletes. Mm-hmm. You're constantly on that balance of pushing your athletes as hard as they can go while trying to minimize their risk of injury and re-injury. So there's a ton of science behind this, especially for elite athletes, because it's such a sensitive issue at the top level. So because we're tracking athlete volumes and intensities and so on through our platform every single day in training, we just make that so much easier because it's fully automated instead of trying to rely on an athlete or a coach to try to input that data manually. So this gives us the ability to track their training load every day, and more importantly, the change in load over time. And by keeping that change in training load within a specific set of boundaries, you keep the risk of injury below 5%, when traditionally it might be over 15%. So again, it's like wearing a seatbelt versus not wearing a seatbelt, just by looking and making decisions on the information you're getting from your training environment.
But everything about being an athlete, particularly in swim, even though we've changed culturally decade to decade, and athletes they're not doing quite as much volume, it is being consistent, and it is staying away from injury and injury prevention. So you have this in real time. I love that a lot. Motion analysis. I think a lot of people are visual learners. Sure. Coleman, who is hiding in the background on this podcast, will tell you that Mel Stewart is a visual learner. He's not the most educated person in the world. But I think swimmers are as well, particularly when they're young and they're developing. Talk to me about motion analysis.
Yeah, sure. So this is a more detailed biomechanical tool. So when we look at load monitoring, that's more physiological tool rather. Motion analysis more on the biomechanics. So looking at the fine details. So our traditional training data is tracking data every lap and then looking at that longitudinally to see how athletes are changing, how their skills are developing. Motion analysis is when we record video within our application on your tablet, and then we effectively synchronize linear acceleration and speed data right on top of that video. So right away, as soon as you record it in practice, you're being able to go through this frame by frame in the video to see exactly where an athlete's gaining or losing speed within their strokes, within their skills, and anywhere really, to really just help fine tune exactly what they're doing and how it's impacting their speed. So this really just closes that feedback loop when you're doing some trial and error, work with your athletes trying to fix their technique. You can see when they make this change, how does it impact their overall change in speed, which is really the only thing that matters. You want them to slow down less than the people in the lanes next to them.
Frame by frame.
Yeah.
Frame by frame. That's what if you need to get this frame by frame.
Yeah. Action
on insights. So we this is a a lot of us in the culture, we work out and we train and everything. A lot of it's by feel. A lot of it's that interface with our coach. But once you dive into Tritonwear, it's a lot of data. Mm-hmm. And sure. So it's how do you action on insights? How do you use all this data? How do you hit point number 3?
Yeah, absolutely. This is really where where our kind of core focus is as a company. We started off looking at how do we get really good data, how do we get really accurate data and drive value in practice. But what we really saw long term is the true value is how can we make really good decisions over time with that huge volume of data. And what we found over the last few years of really working with athletes and coaches around the world is that having that amount of data can be overwhelming. And it's great for maybe federations that have a bunch of sports scientists that can act on that information and spend a ton of time number crunching. But the average club coach might have 30 athletes, might have 60 athletes. It depends on the team. There's no way they have time to look at this data every single day in detail. So that's where we talk about acting on insights. And this is where the majority of what I'd call our highest value tools come into play. One of which is called Focus, which basically analyzes athlete performance data against other athletes their age or against other athletes their speed and tells them exactly what they're doing well, what they're doing poorly, and maybe where they should focus focus to effectively make some gains. And then we track that progress of that skill over time, no matter what style of training you do. Whether you're swimming, long aerobic workouts, whether you're USRPT, whatever, we track every single split, every single workout, and tell you exactly how that skill is changing over time. So it just takes the work out of the number crunching, and again, lets the coach focus on making decisions based on the data, not being a computer.
It's so this is the big question. And this might. I'm going to come at this from the far left. We keep everything that we read about, and if you're into business and tech, is AI, and AI is it's having another moment in time where it's projecting COVID and all the data on COVID and how long we're going to live in this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
What does if you're talking to someone, you don't want to scare them, but what does AI mean in swimming?
Sure. I mean, and again, that's the foundation of what we do as well. We use AI in the background to ultimately get us extremely accurate performance data at the foundational level. That is why we're the only product used by national federations around the world in the performance data space. That's why we have 30 national Olympic federations trusting us going to Tokyo. But ultimately, that's the first step. The next big step is this concept of AI-based auto coaching, or providing guidance to that data, which is where we're analyzing athletes. We're building athlete models of how an athlete changes and develops over time for you, so you can again see where deficiencies might lie and what skills might make a difference for my athlete, because you can only focus on so many things, you can only change so many things so quickly, so you need to make sure you're focusing on the right things. So again, focusing on making the most out of the limited amount of time that we have to train and make a difference.
And if you're listening, go to Tritonwear.com and you can scroll through the website as we're talking. Let's talk about what's going on right now. Basically, SwimSwam started tracking COVID out of China. We started tracking it as early as January. You can go back and look at our reports. We created a header on our site to track all of this and report through the lens of swimming. But it's Tristan, as we stand here right now, we know that a little over 70% of the teams are back to training domestically in the United States. We know that a lot of European nations over time have been the percentage is higher of teams returning to practice. You're in 30 countries. Are you getting data on who's returning to the pool?
Yeah. Well, and actually, we're in over 60 countries now. But yeah, it's we're starting to see pretty broad scope coming back into training in some capacity. Obviously, it's some sort of modified training for the most part. And I think really what we're finding is teams are just trying to navigate that new reality of, how can we train in this environment with less athletes in the pool at a time? Maybe they're having to coach, a ton more hours than they used to have to because they're spreading out practices so much. So we're seeing training come back. I think the question is more, is training going to stay back, and at what point is the tipping point that people are going to start having to close down pools again? So hopefully that doesn't happen, but as of right now, it's looking good, so long as people can be smart and stay safe.
I think that people are being smarter and perhaps staying safer in other countries than the United States. From talking to our friends in Canada, it seems like Canada's done pretty well.
Yeah.
In comparison, I don't want to throw the United States under the bus. I'm just saying.
Yeah. No, we're doing okay, but again, it's all relative. And I think the concern that we have is we're heading into the winter months, which, as you know, are not that pleasant here. So everybody's going to be inside, air recirculating, and a lot of kids back in school now. So there's just a whole lot of additional variables coming down in the next few months. So we have to be really careful, I think, more than ever over the next few months, and make sure that things don't get out of control again.
Let's step aside for about 3 minutes and just talk to sheer politics, and I'll share some insights with you. Sometimes when you join the podcast, we share insider information, and it's not news you're going to see officially on SwimSwam. It might take 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even a month. So I'll share it here with Tristan now. Based on our intelligence between the U.S. OPC and the International Olympic Committee and some other federations around the world, we're hearing that there will be an Olympics. The Olympics will be with Japanese fans only, and that we may not have as many sports. There might be a smaller footprint in terms of the athletes being there, but that swimming will be unaffected in terms of its representation. In fact, it might get more television time. And the reason why we're within a degree of 99.9% is that the IOC needs this. They need the televised event. They need the television dollars to make it on their quad. Have you heard that feedback yourself? Because I know you're connected.
I can neither confirm nor deny these allegations, but no, it's yeah, I think that's kind of been my assumption of this, anyways. Unless some miracle happens in the first quarter of next year, I think yeah, the likelihood was that Olympics would be happening. They would just have to modify the viewership side of things, and I'm actually surprised that Japanese fans will be allowed either. My gut feel was there's going to be a fanless Olympics and focus heavily on the digital opportunities that present themselves at this point.
If there will be fans, the fans will be Japanese fans, and they will the funnel that they're going to have to pass through to actually be able to sit in those stands is it's pretty tight. It's a pretty tough thing. But based on what we're hearing from pretty high levels is that is going to be our future. Domestically in the United States, we're hearing that the big hurdle right now is indoor swimming and indoor competition. Federations are less concerned about training. They feel like they've made a lot of progress there. It's hosting competitions, and they don't want to default to only having competitions in places like Southern California and Florida.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I don't know if you've heard anything about that, but I can tell you that's what we're hearing on our side.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine the complexities with competition environment. I mean, think of meet warm up alone. It's just impossible to keep that many athletes out of each other's faces and warmed up in enough reasonable time to compete. So it's unless you have a bunch of different pools that you can keep people separated and really limit the numbers and spread competitions out over long periods of time, it can be really challenging. So, and just the use of facilities is going to be a challenge in general, I think, with the limitations you can have. So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how that evolves over the next 6 to 12 months.
What we found internally, if you're listening out there and you're just kind of curious how business works in the swim market, in the aquatic market, what's been fascinating is that if someone is in swimwear or in retail, they're hitting it pretty hard. A lot of folks in our tech sector seem to be in two buckets. They seem to be like, nope, we're fine, we're all good, or we are well financed and we're using this time to innovate. Mm-hmm. Where is Tritonwear?
Yeah, I think as soon as we saw facilities shutting down, in February and heading into March, we basically took our 2020 plan and threw it out the window and restarted. As many or every company that's probably still surviving has done. So, basically, what we did is first we really quickly tried to release something that would really help customers and just athletes and coaches around the world. So, we quickly spun out a free opportunity, a free version of our platform that would allow coaches and athletes to track training load and offline workouts and things like this manually. So we found coaches were really struggling to track their athletes from home. We gave them the opportunity to track them on our platform for free and then track their training load for free with our load monitoring tools. So trying to find a way to give back, to the community in a challenging time and in a time when they were struggling in certain ways that we knew we could help. So that was one piece. And then quickly we started looking at, again, very similar to what you mentioned, looking at innovating and focusing on things that maybe we had in our pipeline, but we wouldn't have had the opportunity to focus on if we had all of our athletes training on the platform. So this gave us an opportunity to really focus on some high value stuff, and you'll be seeing some pretty exciting stuff later on this year that we'll be releasing that should catch everybody's eye. So we're excited to showcase that once it's ready.
As somebody who understands the sport culturally, as someone you have your roots. I've heard two theories. I've heard one theory that, hey, athletes aren't going to perform. They can't get the work they need done. While a lot of people have said, no, that's not the case. You're going to be surprised. We're going to see athletes who bust out and start doing personal best times. You're going to see records fall. And they have a variety of theories behind that. And when we saw the door crack and we saw some people doing these short competitions, these narrow competitions, small meets with only 200 people, we started seeing a lot of records. We started seeing a lot of fast swims. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, it's funny. We were having that conversation with some of our club teams around the world, even, and they're finding that because their athletes are, focusing on so much strength and conditioning, that their athletes are fitter than they've ever been. I mean, if it's like you ask a swimmer that used to be a swimmer to go and run for 30 minutes, they're a lot more tired than if they went and swam for 2 hours. So it's finally getting, athletes that conditioning potentially that would take a lot of work for them to do in the pool that they might not get otherwise. So we're seeing that with even younger athletes, that they're fitter than they've ever been, and they're excited to see what they can do in the pool. yeah, I mean, it's very hard to work on some of the technical elements, but you can definitely get some of those fitness elements faster, even out of the pool. So I think, yeah, it'll probably depend on the athlete and how well they executed their remote training programs. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be a throwaway by any means.
Okay, this is the hardest question of the podcast.
I'm sweating.
Brace yourself. You ready? You ready, buddy?
Yeah, let's do it.
Are you a swim nerd?
Oh, absolutely. I'm such a fanboy. I see famous swimmers. I'm like, oh God, be my friend.
Be my friend. You had some great partnerships. You've worked some great athletes and produced a lot of great media. And okay, I guess that was a dumb question. We knew you were a swim nerd. I just want. So is there any when this is self-involved because you have allowed SwimSwam to run your Tritonwear analysis, and that is wholly produced in-house by Tritonwear. Now, when SwimSwam advises or does anything, this is coming directly from your data. Do you get a peek at it and get a thrill from seeing your Tritonwear analysis?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's exciting to see and kind of unmask the mystery of what might have led to a big victory. And sometimes you can tell in a race, sometimes you don't know what happened. So it's pretty exciting to see the data behind that. And now we're looking at that on a much broader scale of, what actually results in an athlete performing at a very high level. And we're trying to figure out what that path is, not just in competition, but in their training development. So yeah, for sure. We love seeing that. We love building that analysis, and we hope people enjoy it as well.
If you're a swim fan and you don't think you're a swim nerd, that just means that you understand what you're seeing in a blink, but you don't quite know all of the data. I lean toward the swim fan side, and I've learned to appreciate the swim nerd side. Our co-founder and our editor-in-chief, Braden Keith, loves Tritonwear analysis. He loves diving in and going, third 50, this is what happened.
Yeah.
And that is the beauty of it. And that's why people are always saying, hey, where is this? What's going on? I want to see more of it. It's a lot of work on your end to produce because to output it in an entertainment format is there. But you guys have these great wireframes. You load it and it's there. Yeah. What is it like in-house because you guys do this during NC2A championships, world championships, the Olympic Games, Olympic trials. What's going on behind the scenes? Is the roof on fire? Everybody just everyone working 90 miles an hour?
Pretty much. Yeah, it's full speed ahead. So it's nice when the time zone of the competition's in our favor. Sometimes it's not. So sometimes we're working all overnight and getting that analysis done as quickly as we can. So we've got a group of people doing the analysis, other people pumping it into our toolkits. It's pretty seamless at this point in terms of the automation behind it. And then we have actual people helping to kind of drive the insight, find the insight, help us write the actual piece behind it. It's definitely as quick as we can to get it out, but the time zone of the actual competition depends. I know with Rio it was working overnight and getting it out just so that I was ready right in time for the morning press the next morning.
We were down to 9 minutes, and I brought this up in the first part of the podcast, but I wanted to talk to you about it now as we're winding down. This market is frothy. There's a whole lot of people in this market, and we have a partnership that has a lot of exclusive attributes of it because we made that choice because we trust you guys and because you've risen to the top and you've risen above the noise. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you're so entrenched culturally and you understand the sport. There is a lot of noise out there, though, and frankly, it drives me insane because it just doesn't land correctly in swim. It feels like someone's given me a football and said, hey, put this between your legs like a pool buoy. Tritonwear is the pool buoy. Tritonwear fits. Why is that? What is the reason? Why does Tritonwear work in swim as opposed to all these endless other companies rushing into the market?
Yeah, I think there's a big opportunity out there in our industry and the broader wearables industry in the sports analytics market. There's this big market. There's a ton of noise in general because there's big opportunity. There's a lot of dollars being spent on it. I think the challenge that a lot of other companies and products end up having is they spread themselves too thin and they don't do a really good job at anything. They do a whole bunch of different things mediocrely well. So the challenge, and I think where we did a good job, was focusing in on competitive swimming first before going down market. So focusing on providing, first of all, really high accuracy data, high value data to people that knew what to do with it, and then drive this action to data, this concept of driving action behind the data, which then makes it work more effectively for, maybe an entry-level coach that's maybe not as versed in data, or for an athlete by themselves, or now for a triathlete or a fitness level swimmer. You can't give data to people that don't know what to do with it. You can't give crappy data to anybody. So, that's where we did a good job. And then that's where we're really focusing on starting small, start niche, grow from there, to make sure that you do something really well before you expand.
It's what's interesting is that when I think of Tritonwear analysis and what happens just in the competition piece and what we produce, I am eternally grateful that we can do it one time, because I think it's so valuable and so interesting for the marketplace and for our audience and for your community. But the truth is, Tritonwear analysis should be the analysis that we're seeing at the Olympic Games.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is, that's a $400 million partnership, $40 million partnership per federation. I mean, the numbers are astronomical. They typically, these organizations come wanting a big payout. Have you ever made inroads into the federations and saying, hey, look, this is something that's interesting that you need so that people can understand the data and what really happened?
Yeah, I think it's interesting for us. Like and one of the big reasons we do that whole race analysis piece is to help educate people, because one of the most important things is that people need to know why data matters, why it's important. Above and beyond if it's Tritonwear they use or something else, people need to know why data is important and how they can leverage it to get better. And the funny thing is that when I look around at all of our federations that we work with, they all have armies of coaches and sports scientists that record every single race at the Olympics. They all manually annotate the races and get the same kind of results that we get in our race analysis, but they all do it individually. So the fact that everybody already does it, why don't we just make it publicly accessible to everybody and make it part of educating not just the top athletes at the Olympics, but all the athletes watching that are going to actually make a difference, or that could make a difference on their trajectory if they understood how they could leverage that information. So I think we would love to get to that point. I think it's exciting to see that we're seeing data being sanctioned, and it's now allowed in the NCAA for wearing wearables in competition. I think that's a huge move. That's just showing that people know that it's important, and it's not cheating. It's not taking away from the sport. I think the same thing needs to be done with FINA. I think the same thing needs to be done at the Olympics, because that data is so valuable from an education perspective, from a viewership perspective. There's so many ways that data can be valuable to the whole market of swimming.
If you're able to do this, if you're not driving and you're able to do this, go to Tritonwear.com, and just on this one point of our topic, go to Tritonwear.com, scroll over to Knowledge Hub. It's one of the headers, Knowledge Hub, and then scroll down to Race Analysis. And on this platform, they have everything: 2018 NC2As, 2018 Commonwealth Games, 17 NC2As. The database is massive. 2016 Olympic Trials. It is all there on the site, and you'll understand what we're talking about. It's just it's a lot of valuable information, and it certainly gets you excited about going on, hey, this data matters, and this is why. If I'm a young coach and I'm starting my career and I want to be the next Eddie Reese or David Marsh, or one of your great coaches on earth, this is where you start. You got to start with data integration. Do you have a lot of young coaches like that who are like, I really want to be a great one, and this is my go-to tool?
Yeah. I think, the great coaches are the innovative coaches. They're the coaches that, thought outside the box and found a new way to do things. I think there's ways to do that, without technology, but I think the nature of the sport is there's only so many hours in a day that we can train, so many hours in a season we can train. So there's only so many new things I can do in practice that will be different. By leveraging data, I can spend more time coaching, so I can do more of those things. By having that data, I can make better decisions outside of the pool. So it gives me a broader window to make better decisions, to give better quality feedback to my athletes. We definitely see coaches using this as a mechanism to have more time, ultimately, to make better decisions. And that's really exciting for us to see how athletes and coaches can really take the next step and do some exciting things to again, redefine their limits in the sport.
What's fascinating is you have this intimate language that you share with your coach, and it is high level. And if someone is standing there listening to it, it sounds like they're talking in Latin, but really the language they need to have needs to be elevated. It needs to be a Tritonwear data-driven language. It's the Tritonwear language. And so if you're a young coach out there and that's something that you want to learn and achieve, go to tritonwear.com. I can tell you that Tristan is a great guy. He's easy to talk to, easy to interface with. This company has great customer service, and it's a big reason why we've been with them for many, many years. We're down to 2 minutes, buddy. What are you doing to keep yourself sane? Are you working longer hours? Is it the same thing? What's happening in your life?
Oh yeah, it's always long hours, but it's always just transitioning what hours I'm focusing on different things. So we're focusing, as I mentioned, on some pretty big innovative tools. So again, that's a really exciting thing that the whole company is rowing towards right now. So I think you'll see some news about that, in the not too distant future. So that's been exciting. Otherwise, it's just focusing on what are we going to do heading into Tokyo? How's it going to be different, and really how can we make the most of it? We're focusing on that, and as we see teams start to ramp back up. How can we help more teams? How can we help more teams make a difference this season that are trying to do something new and that are maybe dealing with a unique training environment that maybe can leverage technology in a way that they maybe wouldn't have otherwise. So a lot of it's a bit of a new world, but yeah, same goals. If not on a slightly different timeline than we had anticipated with Tokyo.
We're down to about 30 seconds. I just want to say thanks for coming on. If you are listening, go to tritonwear.com. This is Tristan. Tritonwear. Tritonwear's his last name, if you ever wondered. And
legally changed it last week.
Buddy, will you come back and we can get real nerdy with the data? We'll swim nerd it out.
Absolutely, let's do it any day.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.